Hello, friends. Today we will talk about philosophy of knowledge. Of course, we will talk about only propedeutic. It's like introduction and the main problems, main classifications, and etc. Another notion, another name for this discipline, it is epistemology or theory of knowledge, or gnoseology. It's classical notion for example, for Russian universities, for Russian philosophical traditions, and we will talk about these notions specifically, especially. Okay, let's start. Three main points, three main parts. Basic problem and correlation with the subject of these signs. Two stages of development. It's a correlation between two main notions, two main names for these signs. It's gnoseology and epistemology. And finally, main classification, what can show us the specific approaches what exist in this sphere. Okay, first step from the subject to the problems. When we talk about the any science, any sphere, not important for us today. What really we mean about our topic, we must especially remember about point of reference, point from what we start our vision and description. Here it is the main question of philosophy. It's only one of the start for talking about this topic, and we will use this reference point for us. Okay, and main question for philosophy it is problem correlation and relationship between our thinking and being, about correlation between consciousness and reality in fundamental sense. That's why we usually can find this hymn. It's a very famous hymn, the basic parts of philosophical knowledge. And here, of course, we can find ontology, epistemology, and axiology. But if we will more if we will talk about this more correctly and exactly, of course, this sphere of axiology must divide it in two parts. For example, this case will be more correct according with our vision. The structure of philosophical knowledge, it is gnoseology and ontology, like basic core of these knowledge, and aesthetic and ethics spheres. It's spheres where we find the sense of all searching in gnoseology and ontology. And what's important for us today, it is sphere of gnoseology or epistemology, we can say another main question of theory of knowledge. It is the truth achievable in principle or not. Of course, it is meta question. What organize now or another problems and topics for us. Of course, here we can find the main approaches and branches in philosophy and epistemology. Of course, epistemological optimism, agnosticism, of course. Now, if our first branch can say yes, we can achieve the truth. Agnosticism, the position of this vision, of course, no, we can't. And skepticism, ask myself and us, who knows, maybe we don't know. It's if we will think about this. Uh, and for concretization basic problems, we can find basic problems of epistemology, we can find the main aspects of knowledge, what really rule and mm, show up the main spheres of problematizations. Uh, okay, and problem blocks. First, it is, of course, the problem of truth. Problem of conditions of truth and subjects and instruments. All these aspects of knowledge we can verbalize. We can use verbalization for explanation these. Truth, condition, means, subject, and object. What more concretely, what we mean when we talk about, for example, problem of truth? Truth, it's firstly, it's problem essence and criteria of the truth. Firstly, these problems start in historically it's so start from problem distinguishing between knowledge and opinion. How we can cut the essence knowledge and distinguish it from usual opinion, because we have any opinion about any topics. Doxa and episteme. Of course, in other problems, knowledge and information, how we can distinguish our knowledge and our information, what the criteria of these distinguish. And different theories will found if we will distinguish and find different different characteristic of previous questions, for example. Of course, it is only short list, not all problems what correlate with the problem of the truth, but it is only explanation what mean this problem. And here, conditions, it's problem what limit limit us in our knowledge. What ideals, for example, exist according to Bacon, or maybe what historical, cultural, social, economical condition exist and defined us in our knowledge, and etc. Of course, the body, communication, um, very famous and important for modern study in this sphere. Rational communication, for example, and problem of means of cognition and what these problems. It is, of course, correlation between humanities and natural sciences. More exactly, it's problem correlation between understanding and explanation, because in, for example, natural science, we usually use explanation. In humanities, we use understanding. How it's work, it's very important how we can correlate it between each other. Okay, and problem formal substantive or philosophical logic, the same idea. Induction, human kitchen, were a famous problem, like a basic problem for all natural sciences and for sciences how it is, because if science it's like synonymous for empirical researching, we must know we must know that we will use induction like the basic instrument for this case. And humans chicken, it's joke, but it's paradox. It's problem how we can do it if we have limits in this process of induction. Problems of the relation between logic and mathematics, very famous Gödel's theorem, and the very close problem in this sphere, paradox of set theory, for example. Uh, Finally, two problems. Problem of subject, here's for example, cognitive abilities, and problems of intersubjective of knowledge, intersubjectivity of knowledge, how we can verify that something what we know really objective, where we can find these criteria, where we can find these uh, qualities of our subjectivity. For example, we more correctly can talk about problem transcendental dimension of subjectivity. We remember here about Kant and the and his theory. Of course, modern theory, artificial subject, and of course, artificial intellect. The same idea, but in another transformation region. Okay, and problem collective subject, the same. How it works in this case. Problems of object and form. Here it is something like one, because when we talk about the gnosiological approach, we see here that it is the main question of philosophy, transform and recollect from point with point from subject, and all these elements we find only where it's touch subject, like a subject of knowledge. We find here the implicit ontological problemation, and we can find it in the problem of forms or object, because that's why it's what I try to show. All gnosiological notions, it is existence of implicit ontological problems. Of course, not directly, but it is really so when we will dive in problematic of gnosiology or epistemology. Okay, that's why we can say here about object like a problem of form of knowledge. For example, it is very evidential when we talk about classification and correlation of object of knowledge, different types of knowledge of sciences, and classification of sciences the same. For example, but very interesting problem really exists in semantic, how our our thoughts correlate with reality by symbols. And final formulation aspect of this formulation, it is really very essential essence of the semantic. Okay, problem of theory of reference, sense and meaning, and etc. If we will develop this vision and we will concretize, we will try to see or develop this problem in another more particular spheres. We will use pyramid of details of epistemology problems. For example, some problems in epistemology will be simple. For example, simple first question: what is knowledge? What is truth? Can we have or achieve truth or not? And when we develop this vision and try to answer to this question, we will dive deeper and deeper, and finally we will find different very special, for example, methodological or scientific or another problems, very specific. And that's why we can say that it's a pyramid we can show and present like a line. Here we see the very common question, very common sphere of epistemology. Another step or step of concretization, what it means, more and more, and finally very particular problems of methods. And you can see how the first our position, what we what we choose, where we try, where we try answer from first question will determine another our development, another our answers from more specific questions of in other problems, for example, in sphere of methodology. Okay, and now we talk about the specific topic for firstly continental tradition of philosophy. We must say about this, of course, but shortly, I hope. Two stages of development. I will use it for explanation. Two stages of development of theory of knowledge or philosophy of knowledge. Um, Usually, we use, if we will talk about, for example, continental philosophy or Russian philosophy, we usually two synonymical notion, kinesiology and epistemology. If we will talk about English-speaking countries, it is not so. Usually, we'll use only epistemology. But for Russian and German philosophy and continental tradition, philosophical tradition, exist distinguish between two these notions. And is distinguish show us the two basic, I will use it like explanation and presentation, distinguish between two main stages of development theory of knowledge. And the first classical theory of knowledge, it is gnoseology. Here we find the problem of knowledge in fundamental aspects, in aspects, or we can say, through the light of ontology, in ontological, like ontological problems. For example, it's theory of knowledge of Kant. It's very classical, the classical theory of knowledge when we talk about gnoseology. And of course, the specific gnosological approach consists in what? Knowledge here, it is the problem, how it is, as such as such. But from some moment, we talk about the concretization, this problematic, and of course, we find the epistemological approach. It's another, it's very another approach. We can find that it is non-classical approach in philosophy of knowledge. Um, what the specifics, this transformation, this turn in philosophy? Firstly, of course, if we talk about gnoseology, it is the problem of knowledge through light of being. But today, in modern philosophy of knowledge, it is we try today these problems through the empirical problematic, through the light of the world, empirical world, definite world. And of course, if we will talk in sphere of gnoseology, problem, subject, object relation, being world, through the light, being world. Now, today we can talk about knowledge and subject, like more correctly, not subject, but object. Yes. More correctly, we can say that it is not subject, but object. I'm sorry for this correction right now. And that's why it's transformation of implicit ontology about what we have said. Okay, we reconstruct all gnoseological problems from this vision. Okay, where we find the signs of this turn. Firstly, if classical approach in gnoseology, criticism, fundamentalism, and normativism, subject like center of our knowledge, and scientistical centrism, but it's not correctly we can say about science like it's center of organization. Our it's like ideal It's like the basic norm and criteria of another forms of our knowledge. The basic approach and vision. Science in the center of this issue. If here so, in non-classical approach, we can see another post-criticism. It's mean that um, we not critique we not critique all elements of our knowledge. We try find limits of this knowledge if we will try move through these position. It's another way of understanding, because if we will talk about criticism in classical meaning, is that it's mean that we stand before, not from inner, from by our diving from to this sphere or some position. Okay, and another characteristic is the same, rejection fundamentalism, and subject like center, scientific, and etc. I hope that we will talk about these topics in our seminars maybe. Okay, let's start another point. And here it is more correct and detailed illustration, this turn by this transformation. I explain it by this scheme, how we use epistemological approach, and how we we can say that its meaning and use of the terms. We today can use only epistemology because this transformation mean that our basic, implicit basic ontology transform. That's why we can we cannot remember about the previous stages of development of these problems and etc. Okay, next step, basic classifications and main approaches, programs, types, and epistemology. Of course, we can distinguish all spheres of epistemology if we will use different approach to understanding in understanding the subject. For example, the classical understanding of subject, it's transcendental. That's why transcendental gnosiology. But modern approach, it is naturalistic epistemology. It's like synonymous epistemology. And here you can find evolutionary and socio-cultural epistemology. Of course, the basic criteria, it is naturalistic approach, and nevertheless, in other branches, it's like development, the first step. Okay, and very famous today, realistic doctrines. Naive realism, it's our common usual vision of reality, and naturalism and praxeological concepts. Firstly, it is for Western countries pragmatism, for example, for USA, and and that tradition of philosophy, it's pragmatism. And for continental, the Russian philosophical tradition, it is dialectical Marxism, like very famous and influential doctrine. Okay, of course, here we can find another version of naturalism, nativism, reductionism, and evolutionary epistemology, very famous sub branch, yes, of naturalism. And here here we find these different epistemology, what exists in the center of modern epistemological attention and searching. Okay, of course we can transform our focus and, for example, choose specialization of epistemology like a criteria for classification. Firstly, evolutionary epistemology, like basic, it's mean that um, that we use it in the sphere of biology and the close topics and spheres. Social, information, computer, constructivist engineering, more correctly, and cybernetic epistemology. It's modern branch of epistemology. We can't say that it is it's adult state of development. Um, all these spheres, all these branches have complete form, but nevertheless it is exists so. And finally, I want to show you another version of integrative and generalizing scheme. It is scheme of my colleagues. And here we can find different spheres by different criteria, different classifications. And of course, it's need for me for show that all these elements are very close correlate with the onto scheme, onto schematization, the knowledge what I show, what I have shown earlier. Of course, the same idea, another vision, another formation, but the same. We can find, for example, content of knowledge, or subject, or for example, tradition. We already remember about philosophical, it's meant like philosophical tradition, and different classification. Finally, what I must say, all these classification really depend from the formulation basic problem of epistemology, how we understand the basic problems of epistemology, uh, and according to these we will have another answers and another projects and another programs of epistemology. That's why it's very important to understand the central genesis, the problems of epistemology. And it's return us to the first question about what I have said when I talk about the main question of philosophy. And I hope that we will talk about this more correctly and exactly with different details in our seminars. That's all for us today. Thank you very much for your attention. Thank you.